Welcome. Alright, let's talk about IS Auditing, brought to you by 3V Learning Center, your gateway to professional certification made easy. Today we're diving headfirst into a topic so thrilling, so captivating, it makes competitive birdwatching look like a death-defying stunt. I'm talking, of course, about Information Systems Auditing. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds about as exciting as a lecture on the proper inflation levels for beige balloons. And you might be partially right, if beige balloons were secretly responsible for protecting all your valuable digital stuff from cybervillains and catastrophic meltdowns. Because, let's be honest, in today's world, if your information systems go kaput, you're not just having a bad day. You're potentially having a company is now a smoking crater kind of day. So, buckle up, buttercups, because this is important. IS Auditing, or as the cool kids definitely don't call it, ISA, is essentially a checkup for a company's computer systems and all the processes that go with them. Think of it like taking your car to a mechanic, but instead of checking the oil and tire pressure, these folks are checking if your digital engine is about to explode and send your personal data flying across the internet like confetti at a deeply irresponsible parade. They look at everything: the hardware, the software, the data security, the policies that say don't click on emails promising you a Nigerian princedom, and even the people using the systems. It's a comprehensive deep dive to make sure everything is running smoothly, securely, and crucially, legally. Now why should you, an intelligent, discerning viewer who clearly has excellent taste in satirical news commentary, care about this? Well, because these systems hold everything from your embarrassing teenage emails to your bank account details, and for companies, it's their customer data, their financial records, their secret recipes for slightly too salty crisps. If these systems aren't audited, it's like leaving your front door wide open with a giant neon sign saying, "Free valuables inside. Help yourself, ethically ambiguous hackers." An IS audit helps plug those holes, ensuring that the digital fortress is, in fact, a fortress, and not just a very convincing cardboard cutout of one. Either way, it's a win. Let's get started on this thrilling journey of discovery and mild bewilderment. Alright, let's kick things off with our very first question. Put on your thinking toques, folks, because this one's a real noggin scratcher, or perhaps just a mild head tilter. The question is, what is the primary purpose of an Information Systems IS audit? Is it to make sure the office Wi-Fi is strong enough for everyone to stream cat videos simultaneously? Or is it something a tad more significant? We're peeling back the layers of corporate jargon here, trying to find the juicy, understandable center. This isn't just about nerds looking at computers, it's about safeguarding the digital heartbeat of an organization, which, let's face it, is probably more critical than its actual heartbeat these days. Here are your multiple choice options designed to gently confuse and mildly amuse. A. To ensure all IT staff are following daily task checklists. B. To evaluate the controls within an entity's information technology infrastructure to ensure they are operating effectively and meeting business objectives. C. To create new IT policies for the organization. D. To track the number of help desk tickets resolved each month. No phoning a friend, unless your friend is a certified IS auditor, in which case, good for you, you have very specific friends. And the answer is, drumroll please. B. To evaluate the controls within an entity's information technology infrastructure to ensure they are operating effectively and meeting business objectives. If you got that right, give yourself a pat on the back, or perhaps a sensible chuckle. It's all about checking those digital safeguards, the rules, the procedures, and the technical thingamajigs that keep a company's information safe, accurate, and available. It's about ensuring that the systems are doing what they're supposed to do, and not, for example, accidentally launching the company's tax returns into the public domain via a rogue tweet. That would be, and I'm using a technical term here, suboptimal. Think of it like this. A company says, our customer data is super secure. We have a digital vault. The IS auditor is the person who comes along and says, that's lovely. Is the vault door actually locked? Is it made of something stronger than plywood? And does anyone remember the combination? Or did Brenda from accounting write it on a sticky note that's now attached to her monitor for all the world to see? They're not there to point fingers, mostly, but to identify risks and weaknesses before the digital wolves come knocking. It's a crucial part of corporate governance, ensuring that the technology serves the business, not the other way around, especially when the business wants to avoid colossal fines and public humiliation. Alright, next up on our hit parade of auditing excellence, we've established IS auditing is essentially a deep clean for a company's digital soul. But now, the burning question is, who typically performs an information systems audit? Are these highly trained cyber warriors parachuting in under the cover of darkness? Or perhaps they're just incredibly pale individuals who haven't seen sunlight since the early 2000s because they've been staring at lines of code? The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between, and involves slightly fewer parachutes than you might imagine. It's a specialized role, requiring a particular set of skills, like an encyclopedic knowledge of acronyms, and an ability to explain complex technical issues to people who think a firewall is a new type of garden feature. Let's look at your options for this personnel puzzle. A. Specialized internal auditors or external audit professionals with expertise in IT controls, security, and risk management. B. Software developers who created the system. C. The organization's network administrators. D. General management staff with basic IT knowledge. Take your time. Imagine the ideal candidate. Do they wear a cape? Probably not. Do they drink a lot of coffee? Almost certainly. And the correct answer, if you haven't already guessed by the sheer professionalism of one of the options, is A. Specialized internal auditors or external audit professionals with expertise in IT controls, security, and risk management. Shocking, I know. It turns out you need actual qualifications and experience for this sort of thing. These auditors are the unsung heroes who delve into the complex world of IT infrastructure. They might be part of the company's own internal audit team, providing an independent assessment, or they could be hired from an external firm, bringing an outside perspective and often even more specialized knowledge. They're like the building inspectors of the digital world, checking for faulty wiring and structural weaknesses before the whole thing comes crashing down. These professionals aren't just randomly poking around, they follow established standards and frameworks like COBIT or ISO 27001, which are basically giant instruction manuals for how to do this stuff properly. They need to understand not just the technology, but also the business processes it supports, the risks involved, and the legal and regulatory environment the company operates in. It's a bit like being a translator, fluent in both geek speak and business jargon, tasked with ensuring both sides understand each other, especially when it comes to preventing digital disasters. So, no, your nephew who once fixed your printer probably isn't qualified unless he's been secretly moonlighting as a certified audit superhero. Okay team, let's get down to brass tacks, or perhaps silicon chips in this case. We know what IS auditing is, and we know who the brave souls are that perform it. But how does this whole shebang actually kick off? And the next question is, what's the absolute, positively, first thing an IS auditor does when they start an audit? Is it a ceremonial plugging in of a very important USB stick? Do they consult a crystal ball? Or is it something a little more methodical? This initial phase is critical, like laying the foundation for a house. If you mess this part up, the whole thing could end up looking like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but with more error messages and significantly less tourist appeal. Here are your options for the grand commencement of an audit. A. Begin testing all IT controls across the organization. A bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. Spoiler, it won't. B. Request logs and access records from the IT department, essential but not the step. C. Conduct a thorough planning and risk assessment phase to understand the audit scope, objectives, and key areas of focus. D. Interview end users to gather anecdotal evidence of system behavior. Ponder this carefully. The beginning often dictates the end, especially when you're trying not to accidentally crash a multi-million-dollar system. If you selected C, conduct a thorough planning and risk assessment phase to understand the audit scope, objectives, and key areas of focus, then congratulations, you're practically an auditor already. Or at least you understand that diving in without a plan is a recipe for chaos, confusion, and quite possibly unemployment. Planning is everything. The auditors need to figure out exactly what they're looking at, the scope, what they're trying to achieve, the objectives like ensuring data integrity or compliance with regulations, and where the biggest dangers might be lurking, the risk assessment. It's like planning a heist, but instead of stealing jewels, you're trying to things from being stolen or broken or generally messed up. This planning phase involves a lot of talking. Yes, auditors talk. They interview key personnel, review documentation, oh, the glorious documentation, understand the business processes, and get a feel for the IT environment. They're trying to identify the systems and processes that are most critical to the organization, or most likely to have weaknesses. Think of it as creating a roadmap for the audit. Without this map, the auditors would just be wandering around the company's digital landscape, occasionally bumping into things and looking surprised. Proper planning ensures the audit is efficient, effective, and actually addresses the real risks the organization faces, rather than just being a very expensive box-ticking exercise. Okay, great. And the next question is, question 4, controls? Are we talking remote controls for a giant robot? Next on our thrilling journey through the land of IS auditing, we've mentioned this word controls a few times. It sounds a bit vague, doesn't it? Like something you'd find on a complicated TV remote that you're too scared to touch in case you accidentally switch the language to Klingon. So, the question is, in the context of IS auditing, what are controls? Are they levers and buttons that make the internet go faster? Or perhaps mind control techniques used by IT managers to get bigger budgets? The reality is, as usual, slightly less sci-fi, but far more important for keeping things from going spectacularly wrong. These are the unsung heroes of the digital world, quietly working behind the scenes. Let's see what our options are for defining these mysterious controls. A. Tools used by IT staff to restrict user access to network devices. B. Reports generated by auditors to highlight operational inefficiencies. C. Software applications used to automate internal audits. D. Policies, procedures, practices, and organizational structures designed to provide reasonable assurance that business objectives will be achieved and undesired events will be prevented or detected and corrected. Think about it. What keeps a company's digital house in order? It's not just wishful thinking, I can assure you. And the answer, my astute quiz takers, is D. Policies, procedures, practices, and organizational structures designed to provide reasonable assurance that business objectives will be achieved and undesired events will be prevented or detected and corrected. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Essentially, controls are all the things a company does to make sure its IT systems are working properly, its data is safe, and it's not breaking any laws. They are the rules of the road for the information highway within an organization. They can be technical, like firewalls and antivirus software, or they can be administrative, like requiring strong passwords or having a policy for backing up data. These controls generally fall into a few categories. You've got preventive controls, which try to stop bad things from happening in the first place. Think of a password policy that forces you to use something more complex than password 123. Then there are detective controls, which are designed to spot bad things if they do happen, like an alarm system that goes off if someone tries to access sensitive files without permission. And finally, corrective controls which help fix problems after they've been detected, like procedures for restoring data from a backup after a system crash. It's a whole ecosystem of measures designed to keep the digital gremlins at bay, or at least clean up after them efficiently. Okay, let's take the next question. Question 5, testing 1, 2, 3. How do auditors actually check these controls? Alright, we know what controls are. They're the good guys, the digital seatbelts and airbags of the corporate world. But it's one thing for a company they have all these wonderful controls in place. It's quite another for those controls to actually be working. So, our next question is, how do IS auditors test these controls to see if they are effective? Do they just take the company's word for it? Oh, you say your password policy is enforced? Smashing. Carry on, I sincerely hope not. That would be like a food inspector just asking the chef if the chicken is cooked. You've got to do a bit more digging than that, unless you enjoy digital salmonella. Here are your potential testing methodologies. A. By confirming that no incidents were reported during the audit period. B. By interviewing staff, observing processes, inspecting documentation, and reperforming control activities, like trying to log in with a weak password. C. By interviewing staff only and assuming controls are functioning surprisingly ineffective for digital vulnerabilities. D. By verifying if the system was certified in the past year. Also, interesting perspective to think about, consider how you'd verify something important. You wouldn't just glance at it, would you? You'd poke it, you'd prod it, and the correct answer is, you guessed it, B. By interviewing staff, observing processes, inspecting documentation, and reperforming control activities. Auditors are a thorough bunch. They don't just trust, they verify. This involves a whole toolkit of techniques. They'll talk to the people who actually use the systems and perform the controls, interviews. They'll watch how processes are carried out in real time, observation. They'll pore over policy documents, system logs, and procedure manuals until their eyes water, inspection of documentation. And perhaps most importantly, they'll try to do things themselves to see if the controls work as advertised, re-performance or independent testing, like attempting to access something they shouldn't, just to see if the system stops them. Imagine a control that says, all new user accounts must be approved by a manager. An auditor might check this by looking at a sample of new user accounts and verifying that there's evidence of managerial approval for each one. Or they might try to create a new user account without approval to see if the system prevents it. They're looking for evidence, concrete proof that the controls are not just pretty words in a dusty manual, but are actually functioning, living parts of the company's defense system. It's meticulous work, sometimes tedious, but absolutely vital for understanding if the company is genuinely protected or just living on a prayer in a very optimistic IT department. Question 6. Uh-oh, an audit finding. Is that like finding a monster under the bed? So, the auditors have done their planning, poked around the controls, and tested things until they're blue in the face, or at least until their coffee runs out. What happens if they, well, something that's not quite right? This brings us to our next question. What is an audit finding in the context of an IS audit? Does it mean the auditor found a $20 bill wedged in the server fan? Or is it a bit more serious, like discovering the company's entire customer database is secured by a single, easily guessable password? One of these is clearly more alarming than the other, though free money is always nice. Let's look at the options for what constitutes an audit finding. A. A list of system features that were tested during the audit. A good feature to review the list of system, but is that what is audit finding is about? B. A recommendation to improve software performance. C. A conclusion that a control is not working as intended, or a weakness exists that could lead to a risk materializing. Embarrassing perhaps, but not usually an IS audit finding unless it's on the IT policy homepage. D. A summary of employee interviews conducted during the audit. Actually, this could be part of a finding. Think about what an auditor is looking for. They're looking for problems, for gaps, for things that could go boom. The correct answer, ladies and gentlemen, is C. A conclusion that a control is not working as intended, or a weakness exists that could lead to a risk materializing. An audit finding is essentially the auditor saying, Houston, we have a problem. Or more professionally, we have identified a deviation from expected control operation or a vulnerability that exposes the organization to potential negative impact. It means a control isn't doing its job, or perhaps a necessary control is missing altogether. For example, if the policy says all sensitive data must be encrypted, and the auditors find a whole database of customer credit card numbers stored in plain text, that's a big, flashing, red light kind of finding. It's not just an observation, it's a documented issue. These findings are the core output of the audit fieldwork. Each finding will typically describe the condition, what's wrong, the criteria, what it should be according to policy or best practice, the cause, why it happened, and the effect or risk, what bad thing could happen because of it. So it's not just your security is bad. It's your password reset process doesn't verify user identity sufficiently condition, which violates your own security policy section 4.2 criteria, likely due to outdated software, cause, potentially allowing unauthorized users to gain access to accounts, affect risk. This detailed breakdown helps the company understand the problem and, crucially, how to fix it. It's constructive criticism, albeit the kind that might give the CIO a few sleepless nights. Next question, question 7. The report is in. Now what? Do we all go for poutine? We're nearing the end of our audit adventure. The auditors have identified their findings, those little or sometimes terrifyingly large gaps in the digital armor. So, what's next? Do they just hand over a list of problems with a cheery good luck with that, and disappear in a puff of smoke? Our next question is, what typically happens after an IS audit report, with its findings and recommendations, is issued? Is there a ceremonial burning of the old, flawed policies? Do we all just agree to try harder next time? While poutine is always a good idea, it's probably not the official next step in the audit process, sadly. Here are your options for the post-report shenanigans. A. The audit team immediately begins a new audit in another department. A bliss approach to cybersecurity. B. Management develops an action plan to address the identified weaknesses, and auditors may perform follow-up procedures to ensure remediation. C. The report is archived with no further action required. One can dream, can't one? D. IT staff are asked to ignore the report until the next audit cycle. Unfortunately, sometimes too close to the truth. Think about accountability. If problems are found, someone needs to be responsible for fixing them, right? And the answer you've all been waiting for is B. management develops an action plan to address the identified weaknesses, and auditors may perform follow-up procedures to ensure remediation. That's right, the audit report isn't the end of the story, it's more like the beginning of the "let's actually fix this stuff" chapter. Management, those lovely people in charge, are expected to take the audit findings seriously. They typically need to come up with a plan, often called a management response or action plan, detailing how they're going to address each finding, who's responsible for fixing it, and by when. It's about taking ownership of the problems and committing to making things better. But it doesn't stop there. Good auditors, or a diligent audit committee, will often schedule follow-up reviews. This is where they come back later to check if management actually did what they said they were going to do. It's like when your dentist tells you to floss more, and then checks at your next appointment to see if your gums are still a crime scene. This follow-up is crucial because, let's be honest, without it, those action plans might just gather dust in a drawer labeled, "Things we'll get around to eventually, maybe." The follow-up ensures accountability, and helps to drive real improvement in the company's IT controls and security posture. It's all part of a continuous cycle of improvement, or at least, that's the glorious ideal. So, you're basically an IS audit genius now, right? Key takeaways and why this stuff matters more than you think. Well, look at you. You've made it through our whirlwind tour of information systems auditing, you've faced the tough questions, you've pondered the options, and you've hopefully absorbed some knowledge without your brain dribbling out of your ears. You're not just a casual observer anymore, you're practically an initiate into the not-so-secret society of people who understand why checking computer systems is, a pretty big deal. From understanding what is auditing actually, a vital health check for digital systems, to knowing who performs these checks, specialized pros, not your cousin Gary, you've got the fundamentals down. You even know that controls aren't about giant robots but about the crucial safeguards protecting valuable information. We've seen that the audit process is a methodical journey, starting with meticulous planning and risk assessment, because charging in blindly is how you end up as a cautionary tale. We've explored how auditors test controls using a variety of techniques, from interviews to actually trying to break things, in a controlled way of course. And we've learned that an audit finding isn't a buried treasure, but a signal that something needs fixing, leading to management action plans and crucial follow-up procedures to ensure those fixes actually happen. It's a cycle, a process, a commitment to not letting the digital wheels fall off the corporate wagon, which, in today's world, is a very, very important wagon full of very, very sensitive stuff. So, why have we dragged you through this? Because in an era where data breaches are as common as pigeons in a park, and cyber threats are more sophisticated than a villain in a spy movie, understanding the importance of IS auditing is paramount. It's not just a compliance checkbox, it's a fundamental part of good governance, risk management, and protecting everyone's data, yours, mine, your grandma's secret poutine recipe. Strong IS audits help organizations identify weaknesses before malicious actors do, prevent costly disasters, maintain customer trust, and ensure they're not accidentally playing fast and loose with laws that come with very big, very unfunny fines. It's about building resilience in a world that's increasingly reliant on technology that can be, shall we say, a bit temperamental. Therefore, while the term IS auditing might not set your heart aflutter, its impact is undeniable. Encourage your organizations to take it seriously. Ask the awkward questions. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone mentions an IT audit, you won't just glaze over, you'll nod sagely and say, "Ah yes, the systematic review of controls. Crucial stuff." And you'll be absolutely right. Now go forth and use your newfound knowledge responsibly, or at least use it to win a very niche pub quiz. The world needs more informed citizens, even if the information is about the systematic evaluation of IT infrastructure. And that's a wrap. Keep quizzing, stay sharp, and stay tuned to more quiz from 3V Learning Center to ace that